Got anything, Abu Saeed? Yeah. Not yet, right? Perfect. Okay. Close door so they can- بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أتمان الأكملان على خير خلق الله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Like we always say, the different masjids that we go to, the few countries that I've been blessed by Allah to visit, the countless different brothers that we've met, disciples, people from all walks of life, even non-Muslims, different ages, different races, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, so on and so forth. When you meet someone, when you visit a country, you visit a city, you visit a masjid, you visit a town, there's always bitter and sweet. There's always bitter and sweet. And the time or the peak of the bitter taste, and oftentimes of the sweetness, in most cases is your last day or your last night. In most cases. The last night, the last lecture that you do, the last masjid that you're going to visit, in most cases, from my experience, Abu Saeed can correct me if I'm wrong, everything is pretty much clear. The trip has reached its climax. Or oftentimes, the last day and the last lecture, the last night, is the peak of the trip. Everybody knows everyone. You know the ups, you know the downs, you know the schedule. Your body has adjusted to the time schedule, the food, the eating, etc. The adrenaline is rushing. Everyone feels good. Brothers that you just met 24 hours ago, 72 hours ago, 48 hours ago were strangers. You've driven around with them. You've had lunch with them. You've had dinner with them. They've asked you questions. They've made jokes with you. Some of them share personal information. They may confine you, etc. So you feel more comfortable with them. So the last night or the last lecture is normally the height of the trip, the peak of the trip. It's the best of the best. The people get accustomed to you, you get accustomed to them, etc. But at the same time, it's also bitter, whereas you've been gone for some time now. You miss your family, you miss your children, you miss your own comfort zone. No matter what type of hotel you're in, no matter what type of luxurious place you go to and visit, no matter how well they feed you, no matter what dessert and coffee and bubble tea that they give you, there's no place like home. There's nothing like your own, okay? Also, your body may be exhausted or tired. You may need to go back to your own normal, regular schedule, etc. So the last day is always bitter and sweet. For me, it's always been bitter and sweet. You feel happy, but at the same time you feel sad. You miss home, and at the same time you know that these beautiful brothers that you've been with, traveling with, eating with, laughing with, brothers taking shots at each other, the things of brotherhood, you know that it's what? It has to come to an end. It has to come to an end. So with that being said, alhamdulillah, it was Allah's qadr, Allah's wisdom, and His infinite knowledge to make Masjid al-Iman the last stop on this trip. The last stop on this trip. Hopefully it won't be the last trip, inshallah ta'ala, to California. And alhamdulillah, since we've been here, I've enjoyed myself. And I have full confidence that I speak on behalf of my companion, Brother Abu Saeed. I feel confident that he feels the same. As we told Brother Muhammad Hijab when we met him, alhamdulillah, and he had the debate, and he asked, how did I do? How was the debate? As we told him, and we tell you, and we say about ourselves, al-kamalu lillah. Perfection is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no perfect place. There's no perfect person. And there's no perfect situation. No matter where you go, no matter how hospitable the host may be, how generous the host is, how luxurious, whatever the setup is, there's always going to be a shortcoming. And that's because it's a human driving or steering the wheel, the wheel of the ship. He's pushing the boat. Perfection is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's first and foremost. However, I definitely enjoyed my trip. It was an eye-opener. It was a reminder. And to be quite honest, it was a very refreshing trip from several different aspects. It's refreshing to see and to meet more young brothers. And obviously, I didn't necessarily have that much contact with young sisters, even though we have been in many countries in which there are many sisters who are talibat ilm. They're students of knowledge, and they're teachers, and they have classes too. But we don't have so much dealings with them, because for obvious reasons. But especially with the young brothers in which you can actually meet with and shake hands and give a hug and sit and drive around with and be closer to them. It was very refreshing to see younger brothers aspiring to go overseas, to go to Medina, to which college should I go to? They asked us at the first night of the trip. Sharia or Kulit al-Hadith? So that's the question that he asked us. That's refreshing. And to see young brothers that are positive, that have talent, that have promise. And specifically from among them was Brother Taha. May Allah bless him and increase him. And there are many other young brothers who aspire to do good and to take that journey and take that trip and seek ilm. That's refreshing. And from the opposite end, to see brothers whom you knew from Medina, you saw in Medina, you met in Medina, and alhamdulillah, they graduated, they successfully finished their studies, and now they've come back and they've established a community. They've established a masjid, they're teaching, they're calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فِيمَا نَحْسَبْ, according to what we think and what we see in Allah Azza wa Jalla is a hasibuhu. Whether it be the Imam, the Sheikh Yusuf Skafi, may Allah bless him, or others that we met in Medina, brothers that we knew a lot or a little, brothers that we had a real tight relationship with, or here and there, assalamu alaikum, basic general respect. But to come back and to see them teaching and calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a blessing, and that's also very, very refreshing. And I'm not saying this to break anyone's back, but I'm only saying this to encourage for the brothers and the sisters to keep moving forward and to remain firm upon what Allah Azza wa Jalla has blessed them. And also, alhamdulillah, it's very refreshing to meet certain brothers that you didn't know from Medina. You may have met them at a conference or at a different state. And of course, al-ilmu silatun bayna ahlihi. Knowledge is like DNA. Knowledge is like blood. Knowledge is like the mother's womb. You have a brother that you don't know, you're not related to, he's from a different ethnicity, a different race, but because he studied and you studied, you feel like he's your long-lost twin. Brothers that have similar interests, who want to study, who want to learn, who want to memorize, who want to teach. And alhamdulillah, that's Sheikh Ahmed Khatir, Sheikh Ammar, Shaheen, and the other mashayikh that we met at NJ Dawah a few years back. And it's very refreshing to meet them on their home turf and to see what they have done and to see what they're trying to do and what they're trying to establish. That's a very, very, very good, special feeling. All right? So I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to bless each and every one of you and allow you to remain sincere and to put the truth upon your tongues and to allow the banner of the sunnah to be hung high in the sky and to slap the wind and be lofty and elevated and to make base and make low the statement of kufr and the flag and the banner of misguidance and falsehood, no matter whatever that misguidance and falsehood may be, whatever name or title or slogan it has, or wherever its location, wherever it is, to make the haqq the uppermost and to make the batil the most base. I mean, now when I came here to this masjid tonight, something very interesting took place. Very interesting. And that's pertaining to the topic of tonight's lecture. Feminism in Islam, yay or nay? Yes or no? Is there such thing as feminism in Islam? Can you be a feminist and still be a Muslim, whether you're a man or a woman? Is there a such thing as chauvinism or misogyny or the other isms and drees and the different terms that they use? Does that have any place in our religion? So that was the topic that I proposed. And of course, a topic like this is going to be controversial. Of course, a topic like this is going to be a hot topic. There are going to be people that are supporting. There are going to be people who are against it. There are going to be people who want to hear and want to listen how HadithDisciple What is the way that we're going to attack it and address it, etc. And alhamdulillah, some brothers were totally for it. Some brothers, they wanted more details, or how are you going to talk about it? Are you going to get us in trouble, so on and so forth. And the interesting thing at the Masjid, walillahil hamd, took place from a brother that I just met. Walillahil hamd, Yusuf Scafi and his brother, they said in the office, they said, what? No, go for it. Don't change the subject. I said to Brother Fahmi, I said, let's talk about something else. I saw the kids playing on the playground, on the swings. I said, let's talk about something else. And Brother Fahmi, he said, talk about what you talked about last night, the tarbiyah, the prophetic tarbiyah. And when they came in, he says, no way. We want you to talk about feminism. Bring it up. Our children are being attacked. The ideology, the concept is being drilled into their minds. People are being brainwashed. It needs to be spoken on. And then the next, that was the left. And then the right punch came and he says, what? Don't water it down. Bring it raw. Speak the truth. This masjid, inshallah, you don't have to worry about no one attacking you or coming up and making a campaign against you or crusade against you. You said this, you said that. How could you be so inconsiderate? So on and so forth. So I felt that was very, very interesting. And honestly, I respect that a great deal. And I say that to your faces. Because that isn't something that you encounter too often. You find brothers that are trying to be on the sunnah, trying to be on the truth, and they'll still be very scared. They'll be very afraid. Or they may be too careful, excessively careful. Or they may try to water it down or shave it down or whatever the case may be. And we know that in Islam, it's not necessarily the best thing to praise someone to their face. It's not necessarily the best thing to praise someone directly to their face. As the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُ الْمَدَّحِينَ فَاحْثُوا فِي وُجُوهِهِمُ التُّرَابِ. He says, when you see people who are excessive flatterers, people who flatter and they praise excessively, then throw gravel in their faces. Stop them, shun them. Don't let someone break your neck. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. Oh, mashallah, you're so beautiful, you're so. La. Be moderate in what you say. Be moderate in what you say. So those are the words of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ in the authentic hadith. One of the tabi'een, if I'm not mistaken, is Wahab ibn Munabbih rahimahullah, the brother of Hammam. He made a very profound statement based off of that hadith. He says, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ الرَّجُلِ يقول فيك من الخير ما ليس فيك فلا تأمن عليه أن يقول فيك من الشر ما ليس فيك أو كما قال رحمه الله. He says that when you see someone praising you and exaggerating and saying things that are positive about you which are not true, saying good things about you which aren't true, then know for sure that in most cases he'll say things negative about you that aren't true. If he exceeds the boundaries with the good and the positivity, there's no guarantee that he won't say the exact opposite about you and it's totally untrue. So if someone is excessive, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, in most cases, the coin can flip. And he'll say such and such and such and such about you in a negative manner, which isn't true. But that's only one half of the coin as well. There are many prophetic hadiths in which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ praised people. And he spoke to people directly. And he told them directly of virtue. He told them of the good that they were upon. And he gave them the glad tidings. From the most popular of those hadiths, an authentic narration, is the report of Abu Hurairah, in which the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he was asked by Abu Hurairah, he says, "Man as'adu nas bi shafa'atika yawm al-qiyamah." O Messenger of Allah, who's the happiest? Who is the quote-unquote luckiest person of your intercession on the day of judgment? Who is the Muslim that's going to have such a high chance and a high percentage to get your intercession? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, لَقَدْ ظَنَنْتُ يَا أَبَا هُرَيْرَةَ أَلَّا يَسْأَلَنِي أَوْ لَا يَسْأَلُنِي أَحَدٌ أَوَّلَ مِنْكَ لِمَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْ حِرْصِكَ عَلَى الْحَدِيثِ أَسْعَدُ النَّاسِ بِشَفَاعَةِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ قَالَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ خَالِصًا مِنْ قَلْبِهِ أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. He says, Abu Hurairah, I knew you would be the first person to ask me this question. I knew that you will be the first person to ask me this question. Why? لِمَا رَأَيْتُ مِنْ حِرْصِكَ عَلَى الْحَدِيثِ, because you're a very diligent student of my institute. You study with me, you live with me, you sacrifice with me. You're pious, you're righteous, and you're a hardworking student. You're my disciple. So I knew no one else would have the audacity or would think about it or have the ability to ask that question before you. And he says, those who will be the happiest with my intercession on the day of judgment are those who say La ilaha illallah sincerely. So the highlighting point from the hadith is that the Messenger of Allah والسلام, told Abu Hurairah to his face that he was good. And he told him to his face that he was diligent. And he told him to his face that he was upon the right path. And there are many, many authentic hadiths like this, in which the Prophet ﷺ praised this companion and said this good about that companion. And it's only with the purpose of min bab tashjir, to encourage, not to break the neck and to turn your head into a hot air balloon, but to encourage you to go further and encourage you to remain firm. And as long as it's true, and as long as it is moderate, then there's nothing wrong with it. And the hadith clearly says, al-maddahin, those who do it excessively. But it's permissible to praise your brother or to praise your sister with those conditions. Number one is that it's the truth. Number two, it's done moderately. And number three is that it's not a fear of fitna. He's not someone that's just going to take the praise and just start floating in the air and his head becomes swollen. So with that being said, that was very interesting. And I respect that and I appreciate that very much so. Jazakumullah khairan. And there lies no doubt I was going to change the topic and I was going to speak about something else until you guys jumped on me, and said, keep it real, keep it organic, give us the raw, as we say. And alhamdulillah, is one of the things that many people who watch HadithDisciple enjoy. There are bigger channels, there are better channels, there's better video quality, better audio quality, more organization. But many, many people that we encounter say, I like HadithDisciple because it's raw. And the sugar content is at a minimum. The high fructose corn syrup is what? It's at a minimum. It's organic, it's natural. You don't try to hide and cover up and please people. And we try our best with the little that we have. So with that being said, inshallah, that's going to be the topic of our discussion, feminism and al-Islam. And hopefully we'll have some time to leave for some questions, whether brothers have questions, or whether sisters have questions, or whether some of the online viewers and watchers in the different time zones, they may have questions on the topic or off of the topic. Khairan, inshallah. So, before we get into the concept of feminism, yay or nay, and mentioning the proofs and the evidences and the arguments for those who are against it or for it, we have to understand that we have a constitution. There's a constitution. There's bills of rights. There are amendments. There's laws. And one of the most important of those laws, just like that pillar that you're sitting on right now. You're resting on a piece of wood. And you in the back, and you. And without those pillars, what would happen to that side of the roof? The ceiling, it would collapse, it would fall down. But that's not the only important thing. You have the beams, you have the nails, the studs, etc. All of these things are important for the roof to remain in the way in which it is. But the strong thing is the pillar, the mainstay, the umda, the dustur. And from those things is what Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَمَا اخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَحُكْمُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Anything over which you differ, its ruling must go back to Allah. وَمَا اخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Anything over which you differ and fight and argue, feminism, yay or nay. Can a woman be an imam of a masjid? Are only men allowed to speak? Only men allowed to be on the flyer? Can a man inherit twice as a woman inherits? Are we allowed to beat women in Islam? Is there domestic abuse in Islam? And so on and so forth. Does a woman have to walk behind her husband? Can you shake the hand of the opposite sex? Can a woman make hajj without a mahram? Why is it fair that a man can spray himself with cologne, sweet smelling cologne, expensive oud, and go outside? Doesn't that attract women? Don't women like the smell of expensive cologne? But a woman can't. A woman can't go outside with sweet smelling perfume, basic perfume. Rather, the hadith says, وَلْيَخْرُجْنَا وَهُنَّ تَفِلَاتٍ. The hadith says, when the Prophet was asked, can women go to the masjid? Can they go for Salat al-Maghrib or Salat al-Isha? And that's another long discussion with regards to those men who are ignorant. Women can't go outside at nighttime. Women aren't allowed to go to the masjid at nighttime. If there's a woman who is a widow and she's in her period of ihdad, 4 months and 10 days, she can go out in the daytime but not at nighttime. Those things, they're not correct. They specifically asked the Prophet about al-isha al-akhirah, at nighttime. And he says, let them come out, let them go to the masjid, وَهُنَّ تَفِلَاتٍ. This version of the hadith says, let them be tafilat. And the literal translation of the word, the literal translation is a woman who stinks. The literal translation. That's not what's meant, that she has to smell bad. لكن, however, مبالغة في الابتعاد عن التعطر والتطيب. It's for her to be far from perfume. And the other version of the hadith says, لا تمسوا طيبا. Don't touch any perfume. So why is it fair for men to put on cologne and smell good? How many hadiths are there about wearing good smelling things for men? What does the Prophet ﷺ say about Jumu'ah? Is that you should grease your hair, put on tib, perfume yourself, even if you have to take it from your wife. Even if you take it from your wife, but a woman is not allowed at all to smell like anything. That's not fair, that's not right. All of these different issues that come up in the news, in the media, unfortunately on the minbar, in the colleges and the MSAs, these controversial issues, وَمَا اخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِيهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَحُكْمُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. Over whatever you differ, the ruling is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously, another verse, which is more famous than this one, that the people know about and mention, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ وَأُولُو الْأَمْرِ مِنكُمْ فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. O you who believe, obey Allah, absolutely. O you who believe, obey the Messenger of Allah, absolutely, unconditionally. And obey the rulers and the leaders conditionally, seasonally. Not all of the time, you obey them. Under certain conditions, you obey them. And if you differ on anything, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ أَيِّ شَيْءٍ, anything of what you differ, then take it back to Allah and take it back to His Rasul. إِن كُنْتُمْ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. If you believe in Allah and in the last day. Why? لماذا? Why? ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. That's better immediately, وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا, and eventually. That's better for now and for then. It's better judgment, it's better determination now and for the near and the future. And we know from the sciences of the Quran al-Kareem is that the Quran is a cohesive book. It is not a book in which you to take a verse out and misunderstand it and take it out of its context. It's a cohesive book. Allah says in the next ayah, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ يَزْعُمُونَ. Have you not seen, O Muhammad? Have you not encountered those who claim to believe in Allah? Those who claim to believe in the last day. Those who say that we believe in the messenger. And what do? يُرِيدُونَ أَن يَتَحَكَّمُوا إِلَى الطَّاغُوتِ. They want to go to the man-made laws. They want to go to this law, this one or that one. وَقَدْ أُمِرُوا أَن يَكْفُرُوا بِهِ. Even though they were previously forbidden from doing so. Allah says, don't go to men. Don't go to men for rules. Only one man. And that's the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. So when we talk about feminism and al-Islam, we have to take it back to Allah. And we have to take it back to the Messenger of Allah. Taking it back to Allah and His Messenger, of course, is the Quran and the Sunnah. The Quran and the Sunnah. Some scholars of Islam, such as Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, and others, they say that verse from Surah An-Nisa proves يَدُلُّ عَلَى حُجِّيَّةِ الْإِجْمَاعِ. It proves that consensus is a dalil. And that's because Allah only told us to go back to the Quran and the Sunnah when we differ. فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ. If you differ on something, then take it back to Allah and His Messenger. So if the Muslims don't have any tanazur, then it's a hujjah. It is a dalil. And as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu said in the Athar al-Manquf, فَمَا رَعَاهُ الْمُسْلِمُونَ حَسَنًا فَهُوَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ حَسَنًا. Whatever the Muslims see as good, then it's a good thing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what's meant by that is al-ijma', al-ittifaq, what the Muslims agree upon. So we cannot discuss feminism in light of my philosophy or my opinion, in light of the modern world or democracy or diplomacy, or in light of this historical event and this person and this professor. No. We can only discuss feminism in the beginning based off of what Allah says and what the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam says. And that is of two levels. Two levels. Level number one is the specific, explicit ruling from Allah and or from His Messenger. A ruling that Allah has specifically mandated. A ruling that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has specifically legislated. And if we don't have that specific nas, the specific text, then we have the general principles that are extracted from the words of Allah and the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. So, back to the example. Can a woman lead a congregation in prayer? Why can't she lead a congregation in prayer? She knows the Quran, she's pious, she's righteous. She may know more of the Quran than men. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, يَأُمُّ الْقَوْمُ أو يَأُمُّ الْقَوْمَ أَقْرَأُهُمْ لِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ. The ablest reciter of the Quran is to be the leader of the people. So why can't I lead the salah? What has Allah said about a woman lead the salah? Has Allah said something about that? Do we have an authentic hadith saying that a woman can or cannot lead the salah? And if we don't have the specific dalil, and that's just one example of a feminist concept, do we have a general proof from Quran and Sunnah? With regards to an example of this, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, in many hadiths, he spoke about the interaction between sexes in the masjid. He spoke about gender mixing in the masjid. And it's something which is very interesting because many people, obviously those who are supporting the agenda for feminists, and we're going to get to the different types of feminists, all of them don't agree. There are different levels from among them, from men and women. And it's incorrect to put them all on one block. Some of them have different views and different schools of thought. It's madhahib, Shafi'i, Hanafi, Maliki. There are different schools of thought among feminists. But those who say, for example, that the feminist agenda is correct and it is needed and we need to push it in 2019, they don't mention this. And oftentimes those who go against the feminist agenda and they try to defend the tradition or the orthodoxy or the antiquity, they don't mention it as well and they run from it. And that's not right. The Prophet ﷺ, he specifically talked about men and women in the masjid. He spoke about it. And that's because women were in the masjid during his time. The Prophet ﷺ explicitly said, إِذَا اسْتَأْذَنَتْ إِمْرَأَةُ أَحَدِكُمْ أو إِذَا اسْتَأْذَنَتْ أَحَدَكُمْ إِمْرَأَتُهُ إِلَى الْمَسْجِدِ فَلَا يَمْنَعَهَا. He says, when your wife asks you to go to the masjid, do not stop her. When your wife wants to go to the mosque, don't stop her. This is what the Prophet said. And in another authentic hadith, he says, لا تمنعوا إماء الله مساجد الله. Don't stop Allah's handmaidens, his female servants, from the masjids. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. We know that Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, one of his family members, whether it was his son or someone who was related to him, he said, Wallahi lanamna'uhunna. Wallahi, we'll stop them from going to the masjid. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, the narrator, he said, فَرَأَيْتُهُ سَبَّهُ سَبًّا. He says, I saw him totally disrespecting him and totally censuring him for saying that, wallahi, we want to stop women from going to the masjid. He says, I never saw Ibn Umar talk to someone like that before. And one narration says that Ibn Umar boycotted him and he never talked to that man until he died. For him putting his view in front of the explicit words of the Prophet ﷺ, do not stop women from going to the masjid. Don't stop them from going to the mosque. They're worshippers like the men are worshippers. So that's one hadith in which the Prophet spoke on men and women in the masjid. But what did the Prophet ﷺ say when they come to the masjid? خَيْرُ صُفُوفِ الرِّجَالِ أَوَّلُهَا. He says the best rows for men are the front rows. And the worst rows for men are the last rows. وَخَيْرُ صُفُوفِ النِّسَاءِ. He says, and the best rows for women are the last. And the worst rows for women are the first. So a person can sit down and scratch his head and say, maybe this hadith is proving that a woman shouldn't be too close with a man in the masjid. And a woman shouldn't be sitting directly to a man in the masjid. And a woman should not be the leader of men and women in the masjid. There is no specific hadith stating that a woman can be the imam. We've mentioned that level. But maybe there's a generality in that. If the Prophet is telling the women to stay back and tell the men to stay up front, how can a person come in 2019 say there's no proof that a woman cannot be the imam? So something's wrong. So there are two levels now. Taking it back to Allah and His Messenger, specifically, as I just said. And if we don't have that, then we take it back to Allah and His Messenger generally. Are we going to understand this or not? Everybody clear on these two levels? And it's crucial to understand the two. And if you're not well versed, some of those people will trick you in a debate. If you have a debate, another controversial issue is homosexuality, is lesbianism in al-Islam. And It's not just that a person is a homosexual or a lesbian as a Muslim, unfortunately, وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, but now I'm an Imam of a Masjid. I'm an Imam and I'm openly a homosexual. I'm attracted to the opposite sex. I have relations with the opposite sex, and I'm in the Imam of a Masjid. And I sit down with non-Muslims. I sit down with the different the newspapers, and I tell them there's no proof in Islam that I cannot be a homosexual, first and foremost. There's no proof in Quran and Sunnah, period. And there's no proof in Quran and Sunnah that I can't be the Imam and I'm a homosexual. So you get into an argument with this person, or you get into an argument with someone who supports this person, and if you don't know these two levels, he will embarrass you. And he'll blatantly say to you, bring me one hadith, which I don't believe in, that says that a homosexual can't be an Imam. And if you don't know that there are two different levels of returning back to Allah and His Messenger, you look stupid. And he'll tell you there's no hadith in Bukhari, there's no hadith in Sahih Muslim, there's no hadith in Sunnah Abi Dawud, there's no hadith in Muwatta Malik saying that a gay person can be the Imam. So you are not following your own Wahhabist form of Islam. And you're going to look stupid, and you're going to embarrass Islam. But you could say to him, you're right. I agree with you 100%. There is no specific hadith stating that a man who's a homosexual cannot be Imam. I agree. You're absolutely right. However, I have 100 hadiths which clearly establish with their generality that what you're doing is totally, absolutely erroneous. 101%. 101%. So you have to understand that there are two different levels. And one may even say there's a third level. There's a third level. And that is al-qawaid wal-usul al-mustanbata. The rules and the maxims which are extracted from the text of the Quran and of the Sunnah. Rules and maxims, usul, principles that are extracted from the Quran and the Sunnah. And this is all included in فَحُكْمُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ فَرُدُّهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. Take it back to Allah and to His Messenger. Khairan inshaAllah ta'ala. So let's get started with some basic points. First and foremost is we want to discuss the definition of feminism. What is feminism? What does it mean with regards to feminism? What does the term mean? And many people, they get caught up in terms and words that they don't understand. And if you don't understand the term, you may accept something which is false. And if you don't understand the term, let alone the usage of it, you may reject something which is true. So you have to understand the words that are being used. After that, the different types of feminism. Perhaps we'll speak on the different types of feminism. Thirdly, the schools of feminism, the different schools of thought, the different levels of people within the types of feminism. After that, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, we want to speak on the origin of feminism in brief. The origin of feminism in brief. And then perhaps we'll mention some of the pros of feminism and some of the cons, presupposedly. Some of the points and proofs that feminists use, whether they're men or women, because a feminist doesn't just mean a woman. A feminist could be a man. That they bring up and state to show that the movement of feminism is a good thing. It's a needed thing. And the proofs and the evidences of those who say that it's a bad thing and it's wrong and it isn't needed. Or those who say, I don't think everything with feminism is bad. I don't think everything with feminism is wrong. But for sure, there are vices and wrongs contained in feminism. And then the people would differ, which of the two outweighs the other. Is there more good in it or more bad? And what is going to happen now and what is going to happen in the future? And we all know what Allah tells us about alcohol, that they ask you about alcohol. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ, gambling and drinking. قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. Allah says, they ask you, O Muhammad, about drinking and about gambling. Tell the companions, tell the Sahaba, tell the people, in drinking and gambling, إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ, there's a great deal of sin. A great deal of sin. Many things are messed up, drinking and gambling. وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ, and benefits for men. People benefit from alcohol. People benefit from gambling. And it has good with it. وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. But the bad of alcohol and gambling clearly outweighs the good. And that's another majorly important Quranic maxim. A majorly important Quranic maxim. Anything that people are talking about today, we have to weigh it. If there's good in it, because certain things have no good whatsoever, it's absolutely bad. But if there is some good in it, which of the two, what? Outweighs the other. Bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the things that people who are for the movement of feminism or whatever you wish to call it, what do they say regarding feminism? Right. So let's go with the definition, not of Muslims, but of non-Muslims, with regards to feminism. I'll only mention 2 quotes, simple, basic, easy quotes you find on Google. Very simple, keep it easy. Number 1, feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. The advocacy, to advocate, to fight, to defend, to propagate, to call to women's rights, the rights that women deserve, based off of the sexes being the same. There's no difference. They're equal. Definition number 2, and this is a bit more detailed. Feminism is a range of political movements, ideologies, and social movements that share a common goal: to define, establish, and achieve the political, economic, personal, and social equality of the genders. Listen very carefully to the 2 definitions. Certain things are parallel, and many other things are totally contrast, let alone the length and the depth. Definition number 1, feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of sexes. In simple terms, feminism is the struggle. It's the fight for women to get what they deserve. For women to get what they deserve. If you stop there, if there's a comma or a period, that doesn't sound too bad. And it lies no doubt, that's Islamic. For men and women to fight for women to get what they deserve. Allah Azza wa Jal, He gave the man this, and He gave the woman that. We all have to fight. When we see a woman who's being abused or mistreated, or they're being prejudiced against her, she's the best and most qualified person for this job. But she can't get it because she's not a man in the masjid. In the Islamic school, you can't be the accountant because you're a woman. And she's the best accountant that we have. That's not right. And we should say something against that. Why are you mistreating the sister? No, not about that. However, walakin, the comma comes on the basis that the genders, the sexes are equal. Is that correct? Can we say that men and women are equal? Or is there some detail, or is it absolutely wrong? That's the meaning of the first definition. Everybody clear on that? Definition number 2. Listen very carefully before we explain it. Feminism is a range of political movements. So it's deeper than religion. It's deeper than the mosque or the MSA. Political movements, political gain, political victory, political movement. Rather, he says movements, not just one area or arena. Ideologies, an ideology, a fikra, a madhab fikri, an ideology, way that we think and look at life with regards to men and women, men versus women, women versus men. No movement involved, but just ideology. 2 different things now. I'm a political activist for women's rights. I'm a political activist for the equality between genders. Or I have nothing to do with politics. I don't like politics. I don't get involved in politics. But it's interesting to read about feminism. And I think that some of what they're saying is right. And men are this and men are that, and women can do it better, so on and so forth. Everyone understand the difference between the 2? The next comma, number 3. And social movements pertaining to the society of people. Nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with how the people think and react, but how people live as a cohesive body. Father, mother, the father goes out and works, the woman stays home and takes care of the children. No. The man is the one who looks after the masjid, the women, no. The women take care of the children, no. Social movements, social ideologies, that's not right. You can't say that a woman has to do this and a man has to do that. That share a common goal. All of them at the end of the day have one nihaya, one common goal. What is that common goal? to establish and achieve the political, economic, personal, and social equality of the genders. I'm a feminist in my own household. I don't get on the television. I don't go out and vote. I don't have I don't make a parade or a protest. But in my house, I tell my husband, you take care of the kids today. You cook today. I'm going to take you out to dinner today. I'm going to drive you around. I'm going to do this. I'm going to work and you be the housemaker. Personal, social, or economic. Why does the sister at the masjid get paid less than the brother? We have 2 accountants in the Islamic school. This is his salary, and this is her salary. They do the same job. Rather, the sister is better, as I said. She's a better accountant. She works harder, but she gets less. That's also a part of the concept of what? Of feminism. So you can see from these 2 definitions, these are non-Muslim definitions, that everything pertaining to feminism is not bad. Everything is not wrong. Rather, some of these points are totally and clearly Islamic. Totally and clearly Islamic. And there lies no doubt in Islam, if a person says that men and women are equal, we say, what do you mean by equal? With regards to the punishment, with regards to the reward, with regards to responsibility, morality, etc. If that's what you mean, then there are texts to support that. But if you mean that a woman must do what the man does, has to do what the man does, is to do what a man is, etc., then we say, wait a second. Now we have to look at the Quran and the Sunnah, the ruling of Allah and His Messenger. So that is the basic definition and breakdown of feminism. As far as the different types of feminists, then there are 2 main categories, and there are many subcategories. Main category number 1, one could say balanced feminists or moderate feminists. And the second category, of course, you know what I'm about to say, radical feminists. Feminists that have no problem in voicing their opinions, protesting, or there's a conference, and they'll say at the conference, how many sisters are on the venue? How many sisters are on the flyer? There are 10 speakers, there's 7 brothers and 3 sisters. No, there have to be 5 sisters on the conference. There have to be 6 sisters and 4 brothers. Rather, there have to be 10 speakers at the next year's conference. And if not, we're going to boycott your conference. And this is a true story that I'm telling you about, of sisters boycotting a conference because they feel there aren't enough women or female speakers. So if you call that radical versus someone who just has an opinion, I think and I feel women do a better job than men. When men get involved, they mess stuff up. When men are running the masjid is messed up, the carpet smells, the decoration is off, the people are late, nothing is in order, and it's a reality. And there are many people like that, they'll say this. If you want something done right, get a woman to do it. The sister's booking your ticket to come to the conference, you'll get the confirmation email. This is the hotel. A brother, oh, I forgot. Oh, inshallah, bidnillah. Inshallah, I'm going to send it to you. Inshallah. That's you hear inshallah 1,000 times. And oftentimes the sister is what? It's done. There's no doubt about that. So there are different levels. So the 2 main categories are the balance or the diet, and we have the radical ones, in which I've heard from certain Muslim sisters, there's no good in men, period. There's no good in them. And they are a germ and a disease and a poison and a sickness. Wallahi. And anytime a man has a handprint on it, it's going to be messed up. So obviously there is a huge difference. So that's the main breakdown. The second way of breaking it down is based off of the definition. Feminists who deal with politics. Feminists who deal with literacy and literature, writing, authors. Feminists who deal with social projects and experiments. Feminists who deal with the economic values of feminism. Listen, I'm not saying women have to do everything that men do. I'm not saying women are better or equal. I'm not saying that. But it's not right to give a woman less money for the same job. That's unfair. It's not right for a woman to have to give her husband all of his money. That's unfair. It's not right for a woman to so on and so on and so on and so forth. So there are different types of what? Feminists. And there are different schools and streams of feminism within the movement itself. Obviously, some strands or branches are going to be extremely haram, clearly false, clearly in contradiction to Allah and His Messenger. And then there are going to be other ones, according to those who say that it's bad, not like that. I would understand this, and it's crucially important to know who you're dealing with. And do not broad brush your opponent in an argument or debate. You may be dealing with a sister who's not a radical feminist. I just feel certain things need to be changed. And there lies no doubt, if there's a board of 12 members of the Masjid, we need at least 4 sisters. Because they look at life differently. They have a different taste, a different concept of life. They deal with things and they see things that men don't see. 6, 7, 10, we're not asking for that. But there has to be some female presence on the board of this masjid. Method, as an example. So there are different levels and there are different types of feminism. Just like there are different schools of thought. And that's crystal clear. That's what? That's crystal clear. And if you're having a debate or a discussion, it's a capital mistake to broad brush everyone. It's a capital mistake to broad brush everyone. Moving forward. The history of feminism. Oftentimes men, they complain about feminism and feminists, but they don't want to take any responsibility for feminism and feminists, radical, extreme, or not. And that's because feminism, in reality, is nothing more than a product of what? It's a product of what? It's a child of what? Chauvinism. It's a child of misogyny. It's a product of years and centuries of men oppressing and wronging women. No doubt about that. It's a result of it. Of men wronging women. Of men oppressing women. If you read the history of the different Western nations, France, Spain, we're not even going to see the United States, but the conquerors, the colonizers, the Great Britain, things like this, you read the history of these different civilizations, and you'll find that there were times in which the great thinkers and the religious leaders, they would meet up and they would have conferences and summits. And I've read that there was once a conference and a summit in which the great leaders of these religions and these Western powers, they came together and they had a debate. And the topic of the debate was, do women have souls? Do women have souls? Wallahi, I'm not lying to you. Do women have souls? Do they have souls or not? And there are many, many other things that you'll read about in history, which people used to believe about different people and different types. Do black people have souls? There was a time in which people who had red hair, redheads or gingers, they call them, you read this is a historical fact, in which they believed that anyone with red hair was a witch. Or they believed that anyone with red hair didn't have a soul. It's a historical fact. Anyone with red hair was void of a soul. It's too weird, it's too irregular. And there was a time in which these people, they differed on, did women have a soul or not? Were they humans with souls like us men or not? So what do you think the women said to themselves when they had these conferences? What do you think about the women that were beat up and abused and battered and their money was taken from them? They couldn't inherit. Their positions were usurped from them. What do you think they said? Many of them kept silent. Many of them turned the other cheek. Many of them were patient upon it. But as we know, time bombs aren't made overnight. They're created slowly and gradually. So one woman, she'll take the disrespect, she'll take the physical abuse, she'll take the mistreatment, she'll take the prejudice, and she won't say anything. And the next generation. But now the third generation is different. And she says, no, this is too painful. This is not right. We can't keep accepting this. But the men are too strong right now. And then her daughter, or her sister, or her friend, or her colleague, and eventually it progressively snowballed into a collection of ideologies, movements, etc., 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 extreme or not, in which the women said, we aren't taking this anymore. And obviously, if you look at American history, in World War II, the men who were away fighting in the European or the Pacific theater, women were in the factories. And that's where you get that famous poster of the woman with her arm out. And her arm rolled up, and she's showing her muscle. That I'm strong just like a man is. And it wasn't necessarily equal to men, but it gradually, progressively grew until give women their rights, give women what they deserve, don't wrong them, don't oppress them, to we are equal. And from we are equal to we are better. And from we are better to men have no good in them. And maybe even some women come together and say, do men have souls? They may have a conference and say, what? Do men have arwah? Everyone understand this? So oftentimes men, they don't want to take the responsibility for what they have caused. And we know that violence begets violence. Extremism begets what? More extremism. So men went extreme, and they're dealing with women, and it caused women to what? Go extreme. Everyone understand this or not? So we have to understand that we have to suck up and take some of the responsibility of what's going on today, moving forward, because we're running out of time. What are some of the cons or pros for those who say yay or nay in al-Islam with regards to feminism? Let's start off with the pros, those who support it. First and foremost, coming from a religious aspect, the women will say, or the men who support it, they'll say, like you just said, feminism is the call and it's the struggle to give women the rights that Allah has given them. I'm a Muslim. I believe in Allah in the last day. I say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. And I believe in certain aspects of feminism. And that women deserve this. They should not be treated like that. The Prophet ﷺ's hadith clearly establishes they deserve this. They will get this reward. They will get this punishment. Why are we still beneath your feet? So one of the pros of feminism, according to those who hold that view, is that it is a manifestation of many hidden, forgotten, abandoned, and neglected Islamic rulings. Listen carefully. They say that feminism is the manifestation, is the revival, is the establishment of many Islamic rulings that have been forgotten about or have been abandoned. They've been neglected, let alone I never even heard of that ruling. Such as women coming to the what? To the masjid. The man says women cannot go to the masjid, period. They should not come to the masjid, period. If a woman does go to the masjid, it cannot be after Maghrib. Everyone understand this or not? A man, he says, it's a father or a husband. Everyone with me or not? He says this. And then a group of sisters, they get together and they make a website or a newsletter, or they do a YouTube video or a Facebook page in which they read from Sahih al-Bukhari. They read from Sahih Muslim, from Bulugh al-Maram. The Prophet said, don't stop women from going to the masjid. Don't hinder women from going to the masjid. Don't mistreat Allah's handmaidens, etc., 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 etc. So one of the pros of feminism, according to those who hold this view, is that they say it is the reversal. It is the means of educating people of the ahkam that have been abandoned by Muslim men. Everyone understand this or not? And that example is clear. That example is what? It's clear. And it allows out there are many brothers who don't know that women are allowed to go to the masjid. I've been asked countless times. Or those who think women can't go to the masjid at night at all, period. Countless times. So if a sister comes and she says, well, this is what the Prophet says, and we're going to support this, we're going to retweet this, we're going to make videos about that, they say that's one of the pros of what? Of feminism. Everyone understand this? Pro number 2 of feminism is the concept of revenge. Plain and simple, revenge. And we know that revenge is mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah. وَلَمَنْ تَصَرُ Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْبَغْيُ هُمْ إيش? يَنْتَصِرُونَ. Allah says, and those, when they are afflicted by transgression, they yantasirun, they strike back. They strike back. Allah mentions, Wallahu azizun dhun tiqam. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He takes retribution against those who oppress His awliya, His prophets, and they mock His religion. He takes revenge against them. وَجَزَاءُ سَيِّئَةٍ, Allah says that the reward of a bad deed is a what? Sayyatun? What's the ayah? Allah says the reward of one bad deed is what? A sayyah, which is what? Like it. فَمَنْ اعْتَدَى عَلَيْكُمْ, Allah says those who transgress the boundaries against you, then do what? فَاعْتَدُوا عَلَيْهِمْ, then do what? وَهَكَذَا, many ayat. So they say that feminism is revenge. And they say it's time for the men to taste and to fall into the graves that they've been digging for the hundreds of years of oppressing and downing women. Everyone understand this? And they will clearly say and argue that that is Islamically what? Supported. You've wronged us. You've suppressed us for all of these years. Now it's what? It's time for you to taste what it feels like to have someone's foot on your neck. Do you agree with that? Is that right or wrong? That's not the point. The point is that is one of their pros that they mention. Is that feminism is a means of them getting, what they deserve back from men. Point number 3, the concept of the pros of feminism, and this is a sad reality. They say that oftentimes it's the proof that feminism is right in Islam is that look at the dalil. The proof is in the pudding. When women maintain this, it's better. When women do this, it's efficient. When women are in charge of this, it's ran properly. Look at your home. Look at your house. Let the man do the things that the woman is supposed to do. The gender roles. Can't cook an egg. He can't put a baby to sleep. He can't pay this bill. He can't do that. He can't do that. The house is in chaos when men go near the kitchen. This is a proven fact. Many women that tell their husbands, please, just sit down. Don't even touch it. Not only will you make it nasty, but you'll ruin it. And there are other issues as well, dealing with the children. They'll confine it with mother. As that famous political leader said, he says, I loved my mother and I only respected my father. I never loved my father, but I loved my mother. It's a reality. So there lies no doubt that women, they have a touch. And they have certain things in which they do, which not only is it better, but it's the only way for it to be done properly. So they say that the proof that feminism in Islam is a yay is look at the results when women do things. And look at the result when what? Men do things. Khairan, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, last but not least, another pro of feminism is that they say it makes balance. It gives balance. For the last 180 years, the U.S. Supreme Court, who were the people that held that title? A Supreme Court judge. Who were they? Catholics, women, black people, African American people, people of Hispanic or Latino background, Jewish Americans. For the last 180 years, some statistics state that all of the judges of the Supreme Court have been white male Protestant Christians. White male Protestant Christians. So they say, where's the balance in that? How can something just be continually dominated by one sex or one race or one age, whatever the case is, without there being one or two possibilities? Number one, it's at best complacent, stagnated, at best. Men have been the only one who have done this for the last 50 years. At best, it's stagnated. And at worst, it's corrupt. And it's time for another person to come and take this position. And who could be better than a woman who hasn't had the chance to do it? And we all know what happens when people are suppressed and when people are wronged and they're not given the equality to prove their talent and their skill. Look at the history of this country. Look at the civil rights movement. Who were the pioneers of the civil rights movement? We know that the first pioneers of the civil rights movement were those who refused to be enslaved, those who refused to be captured, refused to be treated in an inhumane way. Certain slaves that came from different countries who said no, regardless of their background. Those are the first pioneers of the civil rights movements, whether they came from the coast of West Africa, whether they came from the West Indies, whether they were indigenous people, wherever they came from. They refused to be slaves because the slavery that you're trying to promote from your Christian book is not the slavery that you're putting us through. Jesus was a kind person. Jesus was merciful. Jesus was just. Jesus was kind. As a great Native American chief once said, he said to some of the European settlers who were trying to swindle them out of their land and make a contract and break the contract, make a deal and then take back the deal. He said that you guys are shameful. You call yourselves Christians. And the Jesus that you speak about and talk about, and the Jesus that you say we have to believe in and forsake our religion, our way, he says the Jesus that you talk about, if he was true, he was an Indian. That's what he once said. If it was a Jesus, he was an Indian, not like how you behave, in which you act like savages over land. Go to this reservation, go to this piece of land, you can have it, we won't bother you anymore. Gold, yellow iron is found in those hills, now you have to leave. Now you have to get off. Now there's a new contract. Now the military is sent once again to kick you off your lands. They said that's not the behavior of Jesus. So these people here were the pioneers of the civil rights movement. Then there came another step, another level. The abolitionists, those who were against the Southern slavery, whether they were white or black. And they also used Christianity to prove their point. Step number 3 were the early black musicians and athletes. The early black musicians and athletes. Don't you know in this country is that there were many clubs and restaurants in which the only performers were black. The singers, the dancers were black, but no black people were allowed into the club. You can't come into the Cotton Club, but who's on the stage performing? Coloreds. And there's another step, athletes. And why do you think there was a Joe Louis? Or why do you think there was a Jackie Robinson? Or why do you think there was a what's the Olympic racer? The Jesse Owens. Thank you. Why do you think those people excelled so much and outdid their opponents? Because they were suppressed. They were held back. And now I'm going to show you how good of an athlete I am. So many women, they say that women have been suppressed for such a long time. We are going to do a better job than men for the sheer fact that we've been what? Held back. Everyone understand this? I'm trying to prove a point here. Is that when people are held back and they're given the position to prove their talent and their skill, in most cases they do what? They excel. Type. And there are other pros as well. As far as some of the cons of feminism, and some of the harms of feminism, or some of the proofs against the feminist ideology and movement, for those who say that it is wrong, absolutely or partially. Number one, is they say that there are general harms and there are specific harms. General problems with feminist ideology and feminist movement. And there are specific specimens of the mafasid of feminist ideology and movement. As far as the general harm, then they say it is the supporting and the propagation and the advocating of hypocrisy. Once more, they use a counterproof. We are not just hypocritical as men, but you women or men are also very hypocritical. And that is how or why. Many of the things that you wish to deal with and establish and call to and build upon, many professions that you wish to dominate and take over were established by who? Who wrote the book on the field? Who opened up the university? Who established the college? Who founded this science? Who was the explorer who found this island or this planet? They were what? What were they? We don't know. They were what? They were men. They were men. Women are the only ones that can be lawyers. We should be the only lawyers. Why? Because men, okay, the law books that you're reading, that you're studying, who wrote them? Except for chauvinistic men. So what scale are you using now? You're saying there's no good in men for the radical ones, but everything that you're fighting for to establish and dominate was made by who? Men. So obviously that's not fair anymore. And that's obviously clearly irrational. That's illogical now. Men are pigs. There's nothing good with them, but the entire library was written by what? Men. So they say that if feminism is accepted, it is allowing double standard and hypocrisy to take the reins, and that can't be. That's not true. Everyone understand this or not? And allows no that is a very strong point for those who are against the feminist movement. Another general principle they say is unnatural. They say feminists and feminist movement, they're unnatural. It's unnatural. It's not the natural way that men and women were made. Regardless whether you are a Muslim, a Jew, or a Christian, a Buddhist, whatever you are, and you believe in creation, or whether a person is an atheist, and that the universe is natural. There's no such thing as creation. There's evolution, there's Darwinism, etc. They say that the mind, the body, the insides and the outsides of men and women clearly are not the same, let alone equal. Let alone what? Equal. Everyone understand this? And the proof of that is, look at the annals of history. Look at the annals of history. Everyone understand this or not? They say that men and women aren't the same. Certain things which women are clearly better. Certain things that men are clearly what? Better. And oftentimes they use experiments as well. Let a woman do it. Let a woman be a police officer. Let a woman try to admonish the child. Let a woman do this and do that and see what will take place. And then I'm not saying this is my view or my opinion. I'm mentioning the proofs of them. And from that is a female police officer. A female police officer. A woman police officer, she pulls you over. Oftentimes they say that she's clearly extremely egotistic, going out of her way to prove her dominance and her authority, getting smart with you, trying to provoke you. And oftentimes people who make aggression against police officers, most cases or many times, it's a woman. And if there was a big burly man, they wouldn't do it. So those who are against the feminist movement, they say it's unnatural. It isn't right. Certain things, women are equal, no doubt. Certain things, women are better, no doubt. But for you to say that we're equal in everything, or you're better than us in everything, that's clearly proven what? Wrong. So they say it is based off of hypocrisy. They say it is unnatural. And they also say it is also another means of imbalance. It's another means of what? Imbalance. Because they're not asking no more or no longer for equality, but now they're trying to do, say what? We're better and we do everything now. And obviously that's addressed to the radical feminists. So they say these three general points are sufficient to sweep the legs of the feminist fighter. They say no more. It can't be right because of those things. As far as specific proofs or specific issues, or we won't even mention them. Khalas. Now, the last thing I want to mention now, Wallahu Alam, with the time that I have left, I think I went over the time, is the concept of some of the issues that pertain to feminism and feminist movement or ideology, good or bad. Good or bad. And I'm not going to give a decisive ruling like I gave no decisive rulings here. I'm just going to mention them. Number one, the concept of al-imamah, imamship in the religion. Can a woman be an imam? Amina, Wadud, or whoever else, can a woman lead people in the prayer? Is that permissible or is that impermissible? Do we have proof in Quran and Sunnah for it or against it? Secondly is, if we don't have proof in the Quran and the Sunnah, what have the Muslims been doing over the last 1,000 years? For 1,000 years, all of the great scholars, thinkers, explorers of the Muslims, all of them, kulluhum, were misguided and stupid and dumb. And in the 20th century or the 21st century, through human evolution and the development of the mind, we discovered that a man doesn't have to be the imam, rather a woman can be the imam, rather the woman should be the imam. Is that true? Does the Quran and the Sunnah lead to that? I gave you some clues with regards to that. The Islamic tradition. Maybe there is no proof in the Quran and the Sunnah, but should we go with 1,400 years of scholarship or a secular nominal professor of 2019 for our ruling? You have to scratch your head and ask yourself the question. Last but not least, is it rational for a woman to be the imam of the masjid? What happens if the woman the woman that chooses imam, what happens when she menstruates? Can she lead the prayer? It's an honest question. It's a real question. Can she lead the prayer? Someone will say, another woman will be the imamah. Just like the imam, who's a man, gets sick and he travels, there's a sub-imam or an assistant imam. You're right. What happens if the other sister is now menstruating? Who will lead the salah? Or what happens if the woman is an imam of the masjid and she's married and her husband says, I need you to do this, or I request my rights from you, you can't go to the masjid for salat al-dhuhr. What will happen? Food for thought. And it's a big, big issue. Number two is al-qada. Can a woman be a judge in Islam? Can a woman be a qadi in Islam? What is the ruling on a woman being a qadi and not Islam? Is it correct or incorrect? Those who say that a woman can be a qadi, for obvious reasons. Women are smart as men, if not smarter. Women are just, they're more just than men. Men are oppressive. Men follow their desires. Men are blinded by this and by that. Women are more balanced. But what did the Prophet ﷺ say with regards to making a ruling when you're angry? Making a ruling when you're ghadban, when you're angry. And what do the traditional Orthodox Muslim scholars say about any emotion which colors your judgment? Anger, hunger, using the bathroom, happiness, sadness, etc. So, if there's a woman who says, I'm in total control over my emotions, then she has an argument there. But if it's a woman who says women are closer to sympathy, women are more in touch with their emotions than men, so on and so on and so forth, she's going to lose that what? She's going to lose that argument. Because it's a big possibility that a woman is going to be a judge and she's going to use her emotional side more than her logical side. Listen to my words very carefully. If a woman denies that premise, she can argue. But every woman doesn't deny that premise. And there are many women who are feminists who say women are more in touch with their emotions than what? Than men. So what would take place if you're emotionally distraught and you have a ruling to make? And they say that women are more emotional than men. Everyone understand the argument? Point number 3. Al-mawarith, inheritance. Can women inherit as much as men? Do women inherit as much as men? Or vice versa? Is that absolute لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ? For those who use that proof to refute the Quran, the apostates of North America, ex-Muslims of North America, they use this proof to show that the Quran isn't from God and it doesn't make any sense. Okay, tell you, that's not fair, that's not right. One could possibly say, why does a man get double the portion of a woman? But, oh you, is that every single dhakar and untha? Is there a time in which a woman gets everything? Is there a time in which a woman gets half? Is there a time in which a woman gets a fourth? And the man is mahjub, he gets nothing. Have you read the whole Quran? Have you read the entire Surah An-Nisa? Have you read the issue of Kalala? Have you read this issue and that issue? When we talk about rules of inheritance. And most importantly, why do women get less inheritance in certain situations? Number 4 is the concept of shaking hands. Al-musafaha, shaking hands, is a big issue. Can a man shake a woman's hand? Can a woman shake a man's hand? If the woman is the leader, if the woman is the Imam, if the woman is the president, if the woman is the sheikh, then in most cases it is her job to go out and meet what? The delegates. She has to go meet the people. And the common way of greeting them is to do what? Shake the hand. So hypothetically speaking, it's haram, and I'm not saying that it's not, but I'm making an argument here, that it's haram for people who aren't mahrams to shake hands. Clear. In most cases, the world today, the leaders are the chauvinistic what? Men. So if the women now become all of the leaders and the representatives, they're now going to be forced to do what? Shake the hands of those what? Of those men. And that's clearly a problem for those who say that it's what? Haram. Everyone understand this? Next point, number 5, clothing, al-malabis. Clothing. What will you do with the Quran and its explicit and inexplicit commandments and injunctions regarding the clothing of women? How can a person be a leader and I can't see her face? How can I shake your hand and you wear gloves? How can you be in front of the people and you're wearing clothing that is mandated by Allah and His Messenger? Unless we get rid of those rules of clothing. And that's why the feminist movement is never ever going to be just about one issue. But it's leading to the general extraction of many other Islamic what? Rulings. Everyone understand this? You meet someone, there's a certain way that you have to dress. Everyone understand this? I'm the representative of this country. I'm the representative of this mosque. I'm the representative of this corporation. I have to shake your hand. I have to sit with you. I have to dress a certain way. Is that compliant to the Islamic dress code of a what? Of a woman. Moving forward. Number 6, another famous issue, al-ikhtilat, free mixing or integration or mingling between sexes. Is free mixing, is it permissible in Islam? Absolutely. Is it haram in Islam? Absolutely. Or are there details? What is the position of feminism with regards to free mixing? What happens when the woman must be the leader, must be in charge, and the mixing between other sexes? So this, and I haven't answered any questions yet, I'm just bringing up the issue. It goes to show you that feminism is never directed at one Islamic issue. And there's going to be a load of other problems that you're going to have to face and answer or get rid of if you say yay in Islam. Everyone understand the point? Next point, point number 7, تغيير خلق الله. It's changing and altering and perverting the creation of Allah. What does the Quran say about changing the creation of Allah? What does the Messenger of Allah ﷺ say about changing the creation of Allah? And what is the connection between feminism and changing the khalq of Allah? Number 8, at-tashabbuhu bil-rijal, imitating men. For a woman to be the only one that can do the job, or the best one for the job, or men can do the job, there are many jobs that men do, in which a woman will be forced to imitate a man, in her dress, in her speech, in her action, in her disposition, and in her attitude. What does the Quran and Sunnah say about men imitating women? And obviously the 9th point, the opposite. Can a man imitate a woman? And can a man imitate, or vice versa? Everyone understand this? And I'm not talking about gender roles. That's different. A man, hypothetically speaking, a woman is the housewife, hypothetically speaking. She's the one who prepares the meals, right? Does that mean that a man can't cook? Men, there are no men. Some of the best chefs are who? It's a proven fact. Some of the best chefs are men. But does that mean that the man now goes into the kitchen and puts his hand on his hip? It's a reality. Does that mean that the man goes into the kitchen and talks in a way, and walks in a way, and behaves in a way? It does not necessitate the two. So there is no connection between the roles and imitation of the opposite sex, because someone will refute that. You can't build one thing over another issue over which we differ. We don't agree that women have to have this role. So there's no imitation of a man of a woman because she never supposed to have that what? That role. Everyone understand this? Even when there are different roles, the stereotypes of roles, it isn't the same. A man who picks up a baby, does he breastfeed the baby? He does not. When he sings to the baby, when he picks up the baby and he says gaga goo and he plays with the baby, does he do it in the manner in which a woman does it? He does not. There's a world of a difference between the two. And that is stifling the argument of those who say that we don't agree with those roles from the get-go. Next point. And that's the last point, or point number 10. Ta'atul kuffari wal mushrikeen wa a'da'illahi ta'ala. Is obeying non-Muslims, polytheists, people of other faiths and religions who hate Islam. And they're jealous against Islam and they wish to destroy Islam. What is the connection between feminism and feminist ideology and the movement between listening to the Jews and the Christians and obeying their desires, what they want? And obviously someone's going to say, all Jews and Christians and polytheists don't agree with feminism. You're right. That's for sure. That's the truth. There's some Christians who are against it, like Muslims are for it or against it. But where did the concept come from? Did it come from the Middle East? Did it come from North Africa? Did it come from Malaysia and Indonesia? Did it come from the Islamic regions of China? Or did it come from another area which is predominantly ran, governed, and inhabited by non-Muslims? So these are points of reflection. You have to make the decision. You have to figure out what you feel makes the most sense. You have to say what you feel is right and wrong. The only thing that I've decisively established tonight, for those listening, those online, I only established one thing, and that was the obligation of taking it back to Allah and His Messenger. That's it. The obligation of taking it back to Allah and His Messenger. As far as feminism is good, it's bad, it's a pro, it's a con, I established what? None of that. I gave you the critical points of ta'ammul, of reflection. You have to make that decision. It doesn't mean that I support it. It doesn't mean that I'm against it. But one thing that I've said decisively is that we have to take it back to Allah and His Messenger. And I believe that the message is extremely clear for those who want to get the clear message. For those who want to get the clear message, last but not least, the last thing I'll say, and I'm sorry, Ma'alaish Sheikh, I know I went past the time. Forgive me, guys. Many of you may be tired, may want to make Isha and go home. Forgive me. The last point that I bring up is 2 points, which are my last point. One, once more, is hypocrisy and double standard. And 2, aggression. As far as hypocrisy and double standard, then for Muslims who wish to be liberal, or Muslims who are trying to be progressive, or Muslims who aren't archaic and stuck in the past, no problem. Tayyib. This is what the Quran says with regards to, let's say, for example, hijab. Hijab, they say. Hijab. This is what the Quran says about hijab, right? So we interpret the hijab in 2019 at our university to mean shyness, morality, a woman being chivalrous, a woman being close to God, a woman having a connection with her Creator, and the hijab of the heart. That's the meaning of the Quran. We do not disrespect the Quran. We do not reject the Quran. Because anyone who clearly says that is obviously they're saying that they're not a what? A Muslim. But we differ with the interpretation that you have. When Allah says, وَلِيَضْرِبْنَا, this, so on and so forth, when they do these things, the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, Surah Al-Nur, that only means hijab of the inside, of the heart. Okay, no problem. That's your progressive tafsir. La bas. But we have another Muslim who goes to the college, or he's a speaker, or he's on the MSA, or whatever the case may be, and he says, Jazakallahu khairan, may Allah bless you for your opinion, but I differ. And I'm going to take the literal meaning that has been adopted by Muslims for 1400 years. I'm going to take the opinion that the hijab is clothing. And that was understood by Muslims from all different languages, backgrounds, races, for 1400 years. What does the liberal or progressive Muslim say to the one who wishes to be orthodox? They call him a what? A bad name. You're an extremist. You're Wahhabi. You're intolerant. You're a Salafi. You're this. You're that. You're Keva. You're this, and you're that. Why am I being called all these bad names if you're supposed to be what? Liberal. And liberal, you're supposed to do what with me? What are you supposed to do? Accept me or reject me? Which of the two? Which of the two? Answer the question. Of course. You're not supposed to disrespect anyone's faith or anyone's opinion or anyone's view. Everyone is accepted. We, as the board, we will make the decision. You can come into the prayer hall with or without a khimar on. No problem. With or without a hijab. If you believe the hijab is in the heart, if you believe it's on the back, no problem. All walks of life are accepted. But why am I not a bad name and you're supposed to be supporting liberalism? That is clearly hypocritical. And this is one of the strongest answers against those people, is that they'll accept every interpretation of the Quran except for the interpretation of 1400 years. Every opinion is accepted except for what was understood by the Muslims for over 1,000 years. So you're not even practicing your own what? Values. And that's why in the United States, there's no law against wearing a beard or a khimar. That's your personal religious conviction. As long as you're not harming anyone and you're not forcing it on anyone, you can go outside wearing a curtain. We don't care. That's your own personal discretion. So why are the people who claim to be literal or liberal and progressive, they don't even follow the rulings of the people that they're imitating? I would understand this. Last but not least, the last point is, with regards to those who say that, with regards to the hypocrisy and the double standard, is the aggression. If it's okay for women to be imams, it's all right for women to be judges. They inherit just as much as men. If it's okay to be a homosexual in Islam and a lesbian, okay, no problem. But why do you have to aggressively force it upon everyone? Why do you have to aggressively impose your will on everyone? If you have a specific sexual orientation, that's fine. That's your own business. It's none of my business what you do behind closed doors. But why does my 5-year-old son must agree? Why does my son have to see it and hear it and believe in it and accept it? Why? Why can't I take my children or buy my children a storybook or they watch a cartoon? Why do they have to see a rainbow every 5 seconds in the cartoon? That's your opinion. That's fine. La bes. This is America. We don't force anyone to do anything. Your sexual orientation is your own business. But why are you forcing me to accept it? Why are you forcing my child to accept it? I don't force polygamy upon you. The Quran says marry 2, 3, or 4. And if you fear that you'll be just, then just one. I don't bang on my neighbor's door. Hey, how many wives do you have in here? I don't do that. Here's my daughter, my sister, and I throw her inside. The mahar you can pay later. You must take her as your second wife. I don't force myself on you. I make salah at work. Can you give me a second? I need to go pray. You have to pray now. I don't force my way on you. So why do you force your ideology on others? So oftentimes people are extremely hypocritical and they're extremely aggressive. And the moment you say, well, I just want to do it the normal way, then you're extreme, you're intolerant, and you're so on and so on and so forth. And in my humble opinion, most people who claim to be academic, they claim to be scholars and thinkers and philosophers of Islam, when you sit down with them, you'll find them the furthest from basic common sense, and you find them from the most oppressive and hypocritical people. And they don't follow their own values that they claim to have. They say that they're academic, but in actuality, they're lacking basic brain power. And when it comes to the true understanding of Islam, the best defense is a good offense. The best defense is a good offense. Being apologetic and always running and hiding and no, it doesn't mean that, and oh, there's a different interpretation. It's not that bad. The best defense is a strong offense. And even if you're not on the offense, one of the most important rules of pugilism, of boxing, is that elite fighters control their opponents. And every defensive move is an offensive move. Every defensive move in boxing has to be translated for a defensive move. When I duck, when I block, when I parry, it's to do nothing more but to set up another punch. It's for me to score a punch or to injure my opponent. So when you're having a debate and they're attacking you and criticizing you, you defend yourself. You have defense, but that defense must be immediately translated back into offense. And I'm going to attack you on your principles, your values, and your claims through my defense. Islam is oppressive to women? No problem. The Quran was made by Muhammad? No problem. And all of the things that you claim, but know for sure that I'm going to put each and every one of them back on you. And I'm going to show you where your academia is lacking. I'm going to show you where your research is lacking. I'm going to show you that you have never studied Alif, Ba, Ta. How can you possibly understand, let alone explain, let alone critique the Quran? And you're reading a translation from Latin to French to English. And this was the scholarship of the earlier Orientalists. The earlier Orientalists, they made their opinions about the Quran, and the current opinions today are pretty much the same, based off of the Quran being translated from Arabic into Latin, into French, then into English. And then they said that the Quran is horrendously choppy. Its grammar is choppy. It doesn't make any sense. It can't be a divine book. Of course, because the first translator spoke Latin. What was his level of the Arabic language? Allahu Alam. Then he translated into French. What was his level of Latin, let alone of Arabic? Then into English. What are the differences between those three languages? Arabic, Latin, French, and then the fourth English. So the best offense is the best defense is a what? A good offense. These are words of reminder and advice for each and every one of us. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept all of our good deeds and forgive us of all of our sins. Please forgive me if I went over the time. It wasn't my intention. I hope that I've conveyed the clear message and presented the subject in the most scholastic way to my limited abilities. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah bless us all. Once more, thanks to all of our hosts, all of the brothers. Sheikh Ahmed, Jazakumullahu khairan. We very, very much appreciate everything that you've done. Sheikh Ammar, Brother Muaz, the Imam here, the Sheikh here, his brothers and sisters, all of the brothers who helped us out. Brother Fahmi, everyone. May Allah bless you all. Ayub, everybody, gets a shout out, inshallah ta'ala. The chef gave us the halal Chinese food, alhamdulillah. Even though it's a little spicy. May Allah bless you. And last but not least, everyone who came and who attended and who listened, may Allah give you good in both worlds. Sure, no problem. The Sheikh is. No problem, inshallah. No problem. For those who wish to stick around after the slot for some questions, I don't mind staying. For the brothers who wish to, the brothers who are online, will stop the live stream. And tea and cake for those who